In professional football, the goal is to win. We all know that. It is a bottom line profession. We understand that completely. But my contention is, and when I first brought this up was with our 07 team, my contention is there's a higher ground. There's a greater purpose. That purpose is team.
Going out with his head held high. That was a passionate Tom Coughlin. This is Loud Mouths. I'm Eamon McEnany. He's Chris Carlin.
We're going to get to a bizarre development in the Mets front office in a moment, but we begin with the starting lineup presented by Citi with Tom Coughlin's goodbye this afternoon in East Rutherford. As you'd expect, he handled it brilliantly. But after he left the podium, John Mara took to the podium, and the co-owner of the Giants had plenty to say. Take a listen.
I think back to over the last 12 years how many times people had him dead and buried and fired, including a lot of the people in this room. And you know, I'm very thankful that he was able to persevere, that we were all able to persevere through that. He had done it before. I thought we could do it again. But at the end of the day, we just didn't provide him with enough talent. Some of our draft classes were not as productive as we had hoped that they would be, and I think that's primarily the cause of why we're standing here today talking about this. You know, Jerry knows that this is on him, and I mean, I've had that discussion. I mean, you can't hide from the record, and it's up to you now to get it fixed. We've had 3 losing years in a row, and a lot of that is due to some personnel decisions that have been made, but I still believe that Jerry Reese is the right guy to lead us going forward. You know, let's be honest, we've lost some credibility as an organization. When you have 3 losing years in a row like that, you know, you face a lot of criticism. A lot of it is deserved, and it's up to us now to turn that around and get back to where I think we should be.
In a word, wow. Let's start with the end and work backward. First of all, for John Mara to actually come out and say we have lost credibility as an organization, I mean, that he almost had to choke on those words coming out of his mouth, because that's an awfully tough pill to swallow if you're co-owner of the team. So he continually there is pointing toward personnel being the reason that Tom Coughlin's gone and that the Giants haven't won enough, and the fact that they haven't nearly had enough talent and some of the decisions have been made and now it's on Jerry. Well, why isn't Jerry gone to? I do not understand why you do not clean house across the board. This is a very bad day for Jerry Reese, and it got worse. We'll get more on that in a minute, but he is publicly on notice from the owner, and I can't remember an owner really coming out and putting a GM squarely on the fire and saying, this is it. But I just don't understand why there's been a separation of the two of them if the primary reason for Tom being gone is that he didn't have enough talent. And he did say at one point, Eamon, well, it's just time. Well, I mean, I get the idea of maybe wanting another voice in the room, but I don't understand why it wasn't just a clean sweep.
I got to be honest, I'm more confused today about the Giants situation than I was yesterday, than I was on Sunday, and they didn't clear anything up. I mean, he said, we lost a lot of credibility over the last few years. Well, you lost a lot of credibility today by letting Tom Coughlin walk out that door, and I understand Tom Coughlin's still around the organization for a while, and we're going to get to Jerry Reese and what the owner had to say about him. But you know what now? I think this puts a bigger spotlight on John Mara, and now he has handled his job as co-owner of the Giants with aplomb since the minute he had it, since the minute his father passed away. He gave the eulogy just a couple of blocks away, and ever since then he's handled it with class and dignity. But now we're going to find out what kind of decision maker he truly is, because let's be honest, his dad, Wellington Mara, hired Tom Coughlin, and Eli Manning was already a part of the organization when his father passed away, obviously. So this is on John Mara now, because ultimately he made the decision, as you said, to not clean house. Not only to not clean house, but to choose the younger general manager over the future Hall of Fame coach. And that is going to be very curious over the next few years, and actually the next year, because he put him, as you mentioned, on the spotlight and on the firing squad and on notice. I don't understand why they split the baby. I thought they should have cleaned the house, but I think this is going to be on John Mara over the next few days, next few years here to see how his organization responds, because now he's made two huge decisions here. He's let Tom Coughlin go, and now he's going to have to hire a new coach, and that's going to shape the future of this franchise.
And look, I get that. Really, when you look at the Giants over the last 40 years, they've had 4 general managers. George Young, Ernie Accorsi, and Jerry Reese, 3 general managers, really, during that stretch. And if that's the case, I understand wanting to be patient and give a GM more time than maybe a coach. I don't necessarily think that's fair in this instance, because as much as John wants to point to Jerry building 2 Super Bowl championship teams, well, what does that mean for Tom?
Well, I mean, that's what he said. He said, why do you still, he was asked, why do you still believe in Jerry Reese? And he said, 2 years ago, many of you in this room would say that Jerry Reese is one of the best general managers in the NFL. Well, 2 years ago, 2 weeks ago, 2 months ago, many in that same room would say Tom Coughlin's one of the best coaches in the NFL. So if he didn't get that championship immunity, why does Jerry Reese? I think it's very simple. One guy's 69 and the other guy's in his 50s. I think if the situation was reversed, the GM would be gone and the coach would stay.
I don't think that's the way it went. I think that they are always very measured in their decision-making. But when it comes to the fans, John Mara owns that responsibility. He knows what his responsibility to the fans is.
But he confused me because he said they need a new voice and it was time. But then he tells you that he never lost the players and they played hard for him and they practiced hard for him. So I'm confused. So after being thrown under the bus by the owner, Jerry Reese picked himself off the ground and addressed the media at the podium. And for some reason, he quickly became defensive while defending himself.
You always miss out some draft picks. I take full responsibility for every player that's been on this roster from the time I was the director of player personnel to right now. So I'll take full responsibility, even though everybody's involved with the grading players and the players that we take. We don't try, I don't try to have full control of everything. You have injuries that come into place. You have free agents that leave. So the depth, sometimes we had some really good players that get hurt. Kenny Phillips, there's a few of them. You guys can do all the research on it, but we've had some really good players that we wanted to be staples in our organization that just got hurt. You got to play the hand you're dealt, and you got to win with it. And we lost too many close games. Had chances to win a lot of games. We had a couple of undefeated teams in here that we had a chance to win the game. On a couple plays here and there during the season, I'm tougher than I look. I don't look like a lot, but I'm tougher than I look.
And those are lower in the last, 8 years or so than the other teams. I mean, granted, you're not going to hit 50%.
Have you researched that? You know that for a fact?
I mean, there's
okay, until you know that for a fact, I don't think you should say that. That's just my opinion. If you know that for a fact, you can tell me about that.
Well, whenever Jerry Reese decided to go in with the defiant and confrontational game plan, that was a bad decision for the GM. Because you know what? Take the temperature of the room. Today was Tom Coughlin's day, and you got laid out by the owner there. You got to take a beating sometimes. The owner said, you need to do better. And you start saying, I take full responsibility. End it there. Don't say, I take full responsibility, but, it's all on me. But, look, I understand. We all sat here the day after the first Cowboys game, the day after the Falcons game, the Patriots game, the Jets game, that Tom Coughlin's decisions were questionable and might have lost the Giants the game. Today was not the day to point that out for Jerry Reese. Again, the owner put him under the crosshairs, and now there's people lining up for the firing squad.
Full responsibility. I mean, you could not have bailed out of that statement any quicker if you tried, and on numerous occasions during his news conference. That's number one. Number two, play the hand that you're dealt and win with it. So here's what he's saying. I put it all out there. It's on you now, Coach, and he's the reason why we haven't gotten it done. Whoa. And said that a couple of times. To Tom Coughlin, who's on his way out the door already, I've done all I can. Good luck. When you say I'm tougher than I look, you're not tougher than you look when you immediately get combative at a tough question. I mean, yeah, there were tough questions to be asked, and they were asked today. But Jerry Reese gave no good answers on this whole thing. None. Yeah, you can't sit there and tell you, well, everybody misses on draft picks. And, we've had some injuries. And the one that I really couldn't get over, Eamon, is if you look at 10 plays during the year that had they gone the other way, we could have 11 wins right now. When you add up all of those sayings, you know what you have? Losers. Those are things that losers say. Those are things that losers say to make excuses for why they're not getting it done and try to explain and justify just how close they are. But here's the other problem. When you look at how Jerry Reese has spent the money, not just the draft picks, the free agents over the last several years, take a look at this. Some of the decent-sized money that he has spent on these guys, Jameel McClain, Jeff Schwartz was just here for a second. Hopefully he doesn't come out and attack me, but I think we can all agree that that hasn't worked out the way they would have hoped. Robert Ayers, look at these guys. David Boss, Rocky Bernard. They have spent a ton of money when Rashad Jennings is the best of that group, and he was, let's call it what it is, an okay player for the Giants. By no means a star, and probably had his best game the other day in his entire career. Is this the guy that you want spending the money? The $50 million you got to work with this offseason? Is this the guy you trust to fix it?
I mean, look, we're in agreement. They should have cleaned house. They should have gotten a new person to lead the regime, but they love stability, even though stability and continuity is back-to-back 6 and 10 seasons.